presents Messages of Inspirational Stories TV show. Live streaming now to millions of devices around the world on Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook live streaming. Our shows are available video on demand on these channels. And we broadcast daily, Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on these channels. On Mondays, Expanding Your Business. Tuesdays, Natural Health and Wellness. On Wednesdays, we cover mentoring our youth. And on Thursdays, our new show, Ideas Worth Knowing. And on Fridays, Women in Leadership. To be able to watch our television show on your favorite device, please go to e360tv.com and download the app for your favorite device. Brought to you by our producers and hosts, Jim Grant and Donna Guinois. Along with our host, Beata Severin Reed and Emerson Brantley. Supported by our admin team of Michaela Vidal and Gaia Guinois Balconi Weda.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Emerson Brantley, and we have Mike here, and you can already see Byron. Byron is our special guest today, and welcome to Messages of Inspirational Stories. And this is the Ideas Worth Knowing show, and we have a very special guest today, Byron. Actually, Mike, I'm going to let you introduce Byron. Because you actually are the publisher of his recent best-selling book.
Yeah, I think a lot of our listeners know that I also run a publishing company, and Byron is one of my authors, and we just recently completed his book, and I'm proud to say that the reason you see that picture frame over his right shoulder there is because he's an international best-selling author, a #1 international best-selling author, which is hard as heck to do, folks. There's millions of books competing out there, but he's got a good message in the book. Although he can be quite technical, and you guys will see that later on, he really did his best to keep the book very much in layman's terms and give you information that you could use about CBD right now, today, not guesses. I mean, he went through a tremendous amount of research, a lot of testing.
Yeah, field work too.
Yeah, field work too. Yeah, with a shovel, and we'll talk about the
real field work. Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about how tough it is to create an organic product that's a true organic. But before we do that, Byron, why don't you just give us a little bit of information about where you came from and how it got you to here?
Great. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about our farm and our family, Hemp Family Farms. It just so happens that in the summertime, we had a farm, and that was our summer home. But we would plant 5 acres of vegetables and share it with our cousins, which I think is great. I'm sure everybody does. The only thing was my sisters and I had to shuck corn and shell peas for 10 weeks in the summer, just so we would, gather everything up and have a freezer and freeze that. So we actually ate from our field all year. And it's organic. So many, back in the day, you really didn't have pesticides. You really didn't need a lot of pesticides, except for a small garden anyway. So yes, we started doing that. I never dreamed that one day we'd be growing hemp for a living, but our farm's been in the family for years. We're growing tobacco years ago. We rented out some of the land. My mom rented out some of the land to the farmers to grow tobacco. But 6 years ago, I heard that North Carolina and South Carolina were growing hemp. I probably saw it on Facebook. So I actually called the association in North Carolina and found out that they were growing hemp maybe a year before South Carolina or the same time. and that there's a pilot program. So my family and I went to Asheville and visited our Hemp Family Farms, visited Franny's farm, and we learned about growing for the state of North Carolina. My mom, my sister joined the pilot program, and we've been growing for 5 years now. We grow several different strains. The whole family, we hand trim the buds, and I drive the flower to one of our labs for CO2 processing, and we make health and wellness products. Tinctures, lollipops, pain salves, all health and wellness products. And
why don't you tell the viewers the difference? Because I know there's a lot of people still have confusion, but the difference.
Sure. Difference. Sure. Go ahead. Yeah, no. The difference between CBD and people say this all the time. I actually, during the day, I go to the beach and I've met a lot of people and I approach them and ask them about the business. And I've had several older people. I had one woman, I bought some CBD last week, but I put it in my medicine cabinet. I was afraid it was going to get me high. Now, here's a woman, a consumer, who's heard it's good for her. She had a reason to buy it, but she still doesn't have the education. She was afraid and she bought some. And so now it's really a chance to help people understand the difference between the plant and what the medical benefits are for both, actually. CBD has a lower THC count, and legally products can have 0.3% THC in your CBD products, according to the federal government, for the entourage effect. All the elements work really well as medicine together. But you can also produce it at the lab and remove all of the THC, and you can advertise your products that way as well.
And that's an important distinction. And yes. And I know in my own life, my wife had a real concern about not wanting to get high. She's a lifetime diabetic, as many of our viewers know. And she began suffering from neuropathy, which is just one of the many, many things that CBD can help with. So at this particular point, I had to be in California, which was one of the very first states where you could buy CBD.
Sure.
And I had to go through this. I had to, in order to get into this dispensary, I had to join this church that, the Church of the Holy, whatever, and sign up and then go back through a locked door to buy CBD to bring home. It was hilarious. My youngest daughter called me up and said, "Dad, what did you do out in California today?" I said, "Oh, well, I joined a cult and I bought some cannabis." What?
It's like an old.
It made such a difference. And it was just the salve at that point, but it made such a difference for her.
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, our body has an endocannabinoid system with receptors for CBD and THC and all those elements. Now, they never taught us that in high school science or biology. I guess that's more biology. But now that we know, and now there's more and more research here and in Israel and around the world, I mean, we're just learning so much more about CBD as a medicine. In fact, as a matter of fact, I have a chart here. You just want to mention some of the things that CBD is good for. Arthritis, anxiety, chronic pain, fibromyalgia, did I say that right? Diabetes, acne, epilepsy, migraines, schizophrenia, PTSD, and several other disorders. We have sleep disorders down here, lupus, asthma. It's helping people reduce smoking or get off of cigarettes, and also Alzheimer's. That's important to me because my dad passed away from Alzheimer's about 6 years ago. And years before that, had we known that either THC capsules or CBD anything would have helped him from getting that disease, we certainly would have given it to him had we had it available at the time.
Or just minimize the effects of it.
Sure.
Or make it where there was a longer period of time where he didn't go into that place. So many of the things that you mentioned are either autoimmune types of diseases that people suffer from, or the other area, brain chemistry.
Right.
And we actually have receptors in our body, and our body actually produces some of these chemicals, right? Just in small quantities.
That's
But
correct.
we have the receptors in our bodies for CBD and for these cannabinoids to be able to work in different parts of our body.
Right.
Am I right?
That is correct. Now, I'd like to mention something. I'm not a doctor, so I can't recommend even our products. So what I do is I tell everybody to speak to their doctor, and I let them know what our products are about. I send them YouTube videos of Rick Simpson, all any information that I get to somebody. In fact, just before this conference call, a father whose daughter has Crohn's, he just drove up to my house to ask about our products. I asked because his daughter had Crohn's and some other issues with sleeping and depression. So I had her speak to her doctor. She's getting a medical marijuana card, so she'll have all of this medical stuff available to her legally. And the doctor also recommended using tincture, and they're going to purchase it from me. Thank God. But again, yes, I mean, it's really important to speak with a doctor, because I talked to my doctors and they told me CBD is fantastic. Like other drugs, it doesn't work for everyone. So you should always do any kind of medication under a doctor's supervision and your pharmacist. And I also recommend, like, some doctors do not have a medical marijuana license or may not have as much knowledge. What my doctor did was went out and hired a medical marijuana doctor, and actually has gotten some of his patients on oxys from 8 oxys down to 2, or a dramatic change. You just don't feel as much pain if you are using the right CBD or marijuana. At least that was my experience. I had both of my hips replaced, and I only had to take 2 pills a day. I went 5 days without any. If you don't have any pain, you don't take them. So I think that was remarkable. I had no idea that was even possible.
And in the case of my wife, she went to her endocrinologist. For those who don't know, that's for diabetes. In my case, I went to my own neurologist, and I said, here's what I'm looking at. Is what do you know about it? Is there anything I should be careful with? Are there any of the other medications that I have that I need to be aware of? And in both cases, they said, absolutely not. Go for it. This is the research is showing that the effects of this can actually enhance the ability of some of these other drugs. And they actually, he told her, they in some cases actually reduce the amount of things like painkillers and other drugs that you may need to have. And that's an amazing, wonderful thing for people with all the different things that you mentioned, are cancer, people who are undergoing cancer treatments, or people with PTSD and other aspects are experiencing. And again, you're not a doctor, I'm not a doctor, Mike's not a doctor. This is confirmed with your medical professional, but there are amazing things that people are able to experience. And in many cases, look, we've had a recent opioid epidemic in this country.
Sure.
And that's mainly about dulling pain. And many people have found that simply taking a natural product of CBD can reduce that and actually help them not need to have those heavy duty opioid, narcotic pharmaceutical drugs, and be able to get their life back, which is
it's nice if it works.
What people want.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, if you can still function, that really does help a lot.
Byron is following a lot of the current medical testing and that sort of thing, but there is still a drag in the medical field because the federal government hasn't approved everything the way the states have. We suspect that's going to change in the next few years. And an example, Emerson, is I'll tell you, if you're looking for money, don't rob a bank. Go to a dispensary, because they got all kinds of cash. They won't let them put it in the bank. I mean, it's just insane. They will let them pay taxes, but they got to pay it in cash because they can't get a check from the bank.
Don't do this at home, folks.
Yeah, it's crazy. Crazy. But I think that we're going to see a lot more mainline studies coming out. Byron, to get the knowledge he has had to work with studies from Europe. Israel's quite a leader in the field.
Right.
You know, I mean, the information is there, but because of the restrictions from state to state and federally, they're really holding back on the potential for this drug, which is frustrating as heck. I wasn't bothered by that at all till I read Byron's book, and now I'm like, why are you making me wait for this? You know?
But just to be clear, federally, CBD is something that is legal in all 50 states. Now,
that is correct. 48 or 50, it's all the way up there.
You brought up something when we were talking before the show, and the government definition of CBD versus other hallucinogenic types of cannabinoid products is 0.3%. Am I right?
That's correct. On the THC side, yes.
The THC side.
Yes.
And that can, to be honest, and I think you say this on your site, that can, if you have to do blood tests and things like that all the time, that can show up. But it isn't enough in most cases to have any, you know, to make it go.
Psychoactive. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it's not psychoactive.
Right. Yeah, if you're an air traffic controller, you better
That's
really dig into what you're using, guys. You know, but or any you know, first responder type things that sort of thing. But that's where buying from an organic manufacturer that runs 100% of their product through, what do you call the process when you take it to the lab? You showed me a big report thing, and
yeah, we have a certificate of analysis for each product. It'll break down how much THC is in the product and all the other elements, CBG, CBD, CBN. There's a lot of elements in there. So it'll tell you what those percentages are. For our farm, though, my sister and my mom had our land tested for microtoxins and heavy metals, and we were negative on all of those. And it's great that they had the foresight to do that, because, you know, you want to be growing completely organically. And had we had heavy metals and, you know, anything in the ground, that would have been in our plants. So, you know, we're truly organic in that way. In fact, we're a small farm, very boutique. So we're actually able to go through the field and from each plant pick off the grasshoppers and the worms and caterpillars, because you're going to have those, and ants. There's ways to deter them, you know, from being on the plants, but we do not use any chemicals or any pesticides. We hand trim and hand pick, you know, each plant, and we grow from clones, so we're able to supervise the entire field.
For bug control too, you were talking about companion plants. Is that what you call them?
Yes, you can plant companion plants in the rows where the plants are. We've used basil, we've used oregano, and several very common companion plants, which seem to deter the grasshoppers. This year, the grasshoppers were flying all over the field, and they really weren't landing on the plants as much at all. We still had caterpillars, you know, but also being organic, my nephew Eric has figured out which ones are butterflies, so we actually save those, you know. So you can't get more organic than that.
That's great. And there's a lot of ways of taking these products, folks. And I'm going to give Byron a shot at naming all of them, because I get confused. Like you mentioned tincture first.
That's correct.
That's a little eyedropper, and they just put a drop or two
1,000 milligrams.
Right under their tongue. They put a couple drops, and it absorbs almost immediately through the membranes in your mouth. But,
great. And it's bypassing your organs, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, so it's actually being absorbed right, you know,
in the bloodstream and straight to the brain and the other receptors, which obviously, folks, this is real medicine. There's a huge cost in doing organic and all that. So, you know, you want to find out what the minimum is to give you the feeling, the lifestyle that you want, and use that. And because he does medical grade and tests it all, every batch is like the last batch.
Right.
And I, back in the 70s, I may have inhaled once, but the issue then was you never really knew the quality of the product you were getting.
Right.
You
We
know,
had
one
this.
time you'd smoke 2 or 3 puffs and nothing. The next time you'd smoke 2 or 3 puffs and you were a vegetable.
Yes.
And that just doesn't happen I mean, you can take enough to become a vegetable if you really want to, but it just doesn't happen anymore because
Sure.
the labeling tells you exactly what the quality is compared to the last bottle of it that you
Right.
had. And
Yes,
for
we
me,
have
Maybe you
testing.
can clarify that too, where you said it had 1,000 milligrams. Explain to the viewers what that means when they see that on a bottle.
Well, it's 1,000 milligrams. You can get this in different sizes, 1,000 milligrams, 35 milligrams, but you can take in the eyedropper, a half a eyedropper or a full eyedropper. This is 1,000 milligrams in the entire bottle. So
Wow.
whatever the doctor says, sometimes they'll say take 50 milligrams, a half an eyedropper. I take a half an eyedropper to an eyedropper a day. Okay.
I think though, Emerson, that denotes how much of the active ingredients are in
Right.
there. They're suspended
Right.
in other ingredients.
Yeah.
So that bottle holds a lot more than 1,000 milliliters, but some of that is, I don't know what you call the stuff it's suspended in that helps you to deliver it.
Well, the thing that I was trying to get, and he explained it really well. Thank you, Byron. Is when you see that on a bottle, you're actually buying the amount that's there in the bottle.
That's correct.
And when
That's
you're
correct.
taking a dropper full, that dropper full or half dropper full that you take, it's pretty easy to figure out, okay, here's about how many milligrams are going to be in that dropper.
It's on the
that I'm taking.
eyedropper too. There's milligrams written on the eyedropper too.
Yes.
So yeah. And again, you speak to your doctor and they'll tell you to start slowly and they'll explain, exactly how you should approach it.
And the effect can really be, it can take a little bit of time on some things, but
Sure.
or for some people, but
Sure.
to be able to have something that is non-narcotic, non-addictive, that is able to address whatever the issue is that you're dealing with is
Right.
it's one of those miracle. I shouldn't say miracle drug. It's one of those great things that it's been there for thousands of years.
Thousands.
And we only in the last 100 years in this country made it where it was next to impossible to get. But for thousands of years, this has been used. And there's a lot of history there, and there's research all over the world going on about it.
Yeah, and it just keeps coming out. It's amazing. The miracle is that we keep learning all these things that this simple plant can do. And we were just unaware. I mean, medically, it was probably within the last 5-10 years, right?
Yeah, we faced some issues when we were doing the book, Emerson, with the fact that there were so many different diseases that it's not a cure, but it helps to minimize the disease.
Right.
It takes the pain away. It relaxes you so you can, have a life, hold a job down. And it really was actually a bit of a problem credibility-wise because you can see that big, long list behind him there of things that it helps.
And it's not an elixir. It's not like the old snake oil salespeople.
Right.
It's not something that this cures everything that you got. It cures. Well, we actually have the receptors in our body, in our brain, and those receptors lock with this particular element. And when we are looking at all of the different things that those receptors affect in our body, it's amazing. Our bodies create the cannabinoid that the receptors are made for, but only in small quantities. This gives us the opportunity to affect our bodies for the things that we're needing without getting high in the process.
Exactly. That's a really big plus, which we really didn't know before. I mean, before I got into the business, I didn't know the difference between hemp. I didn't know the percentages until I spoke to the lab and my doctors and started doing research. We also have a pain salve, 1,000 milligrams and 500 that you can take when your muscles are sore. We've made lollipops. We're probably going to be doing gummies on the CBD side as well. We do have these, my favorite, cherry lollipops, if you guys can see that. I'm trying to get the glare there. But CBD lollipops are 25 milligrams each. They're very tasty, and they do relax you. And again, you're sucking it in your mouth, and it's going into under your tongue and everything. So it's a nice slow way to get the CBD.
Yeah, I like that it was portable too because of the plastic wrapper and that sort of thing. I could slip one in my pocket to take later in the day when I was in the field. And I have found that 125 millimeter or milliliter dosage, millimeter, but sorry guys, is just about right for me for early in the morning and midday. So I'll use as many as 2 a day if I'm having a real stressful day. If it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I might take one sometime during the day, or I might not.
Yeah.
You know, it's not addictive at all, folks.
That is correct.
I mean, you know, you don't see a CBD user leap out of bed in the morning and run out the door to light that cigarette up first thing in the morning and get that nicotine hit.
Right.
You know, and there's none of that. And as far as my personal research, I don't believe they've recorded any overdose. I know they haven't recorded any CBD overdoses, and I don't think they've had any THC ones either.
Right. Now, I think you're supposed to. There's some formula where you have to smoke 5 pounds in 1 minute or something in order to overdose. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's smoking wise. Now on the Delta 8s and CBD and some of these other products, they are, you know, ingestible and they work differently. They take about 40 minutes to hit you, and they're a lot more concentrated and strong, and everybody can have a different effect. One person who smokes could take a half of one and it knocks them out, and somebody who doesn't smoke, the same thing. You just don't know. So edibles, and I'm sure some of you out there have had brownies before. You might know what the effects of the strong brownies are.
Yes.
Brownies?
Yes. I actually was going to make brownies. I'll tell you a little side story. I own byronsbrownies.com, and I was going to make them. It's a lot to bake and everything, and I just, you know, so I used to bake brownies, and now I think I'll just stick with the lab, because this way everything goes to the lab. I have certificates of analysis. You know, I'd have to have a bakery and a lab doing it. I can't bake them from home anymore.
Yeah, that's another thing that we found when we were researching the book, Emerson, is the edibles. Those are averages on the dosages. So in other words, they might make a 10 brownie batch, and there's 100 units in there, but depending on how you mixed them, there might be 15 in one and 4 in the other, and that. So you get some unevenness, but that's why, like he said, you seek the level that works for you.
Yes.
And if you take too much of it, you're just going to feel euphoric and not want to work a whole lot because nothing's bothering you.
CBD,
I mean, euphoric might not be the right word. I mean, it's might relax you, but you know, it's not. There's no high in it. But making the edibles like you're making, the suckers and the gummies, it's a lot easier to be precise with the amount that's in each one.
The lab does it. We are not doing this at home.
Yeah.
You know, this is all done by one of my labs, and they do a great job.
Yeah, I even saw a cooking show on, I think it was Netflix. It was either Netflix or Amazon Prime, a show where all of the professional cooks use marijuana in their dishes as part of the competition in the show.
Oh my, yes.
That was fun to watch.
Yeah, there's a lot of good shows like that on TV now. We need a whole network of marijuana and CBD advertising.
Well,
Hey,
that's why we were excited to get you on here, Byron. We think this is something that not only does it have great health benefits, but
Yes,
folks, this is a growth industry.
absolutely.
I mean,
And we'll be
this,
building houses out of hempcrete
yeah.
in the future. In fact, I'm building one on my farm, and it's a better product, as you well know, and it's great. I think we'll see more and more communities built out of hempcrete because we're lowering our carbon footprint. The house actually will absorb carbon dioxide for 20 years. It's less mold and fire retardant. I mean, it's just a better product, and it's just lime and hemp fiber powder, and you can make concrete blocks out of, or hempcrete blocks, I should say.
Well, and we've had very little medical research on this because of the federal government issues and that sort of thing. Byron has had to go all over the world to find correct information that was based on real documented medical studies and that. Now, I do have a few friends that have been doing a casual study since Woodstock.
Sure.
And after 60 years, the only issue one of them has is he coughs a little because he smoked so much THC throughout his life. But that's why I love all these other modalities, and I wanted Byron to talk about them, Emerson, is the majority of the people in the world now are non-smokers. Thank God.
Sure. And it's good that we have the option for drops and also for different types of edibles. It's good because smoking, when you're heating something up going into your lungs, it's still bad. I mean, because there'll have to be studies, on the vaping coming out later, and studies on the difference between if you were eating gummies and doing edibles as opposed to smoking for 100 years or 20 years, whatever it is, So long term, we'll find out.
Yeah, I actually use capsules,
That's
because I know every time I'm getting the exact same.
That's amount. Right. I have those as well. I like that.
And just a little anecdotal information, folks. I take one pill an hour before bed, THC and CBD together, because I want that entourage effect he talked about. I take one an hour before bed. I'm sound asleep before any of the effect hits my body at all. And folks, I'm 67 years old, and I stay in bed for 8 to 9 hours straight.
So you make it all the way through the night. That's fantastic.
And anybody that's over 60 knows what a big deal that is for you kids.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. Yeah, it works for me as well.
But my wife, sometimes she'll take the exact same dosage and it'll make her hyper. It'll just wake her right up, man. She wants to go in and get on the computer and do something creative in that.
Keep talking.
So that's why, I when I first got started, I think I got my license 5 years ago. Right when it became legal in Florida. And so I would ask the doctors, I would ask the people at the dispensary, well, how much should I take? I figured they could look at me and say, big, tall, fat guy, he needs X. But it doesn't work that way. You could be two people exactly the same body size, but their brain works different, their receptors are different. So folks, we aren't trying to be difficult when we don't tell you take X number of this for this amount of time and all that. You really have to start gradually, use a safe product like Byron's where you're getting consistency and there's no heavy metals or any of that other awful stuff that a couple of manufacturers a few years ago put some really bad stuff in some of the vape pipes. And so
I remember that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's so important,
the vaping,
folks. And it's a little bit tempting because when
vitamin E, it was vitamin E.
That was it.
I actually bought one of the cartridges, and before I sold my house, I found it moving out, and I had saved it because I bought it at a store, the store we knew, and I just had it was peppermint. So I just put it in the drawer, never smoked it, and when I looked at it, it said vitamin E. I'm glad I never smoked it. It's funny you should say that, but I remember that now.
Yeah.
And Mike, you mentioned having a license. and that goes back a few years, but I don't think any of the states, excuse me, I don't think any of the states, Byron, today, you have to have a license to buy any of the CBD products that you have.
You know, I do have a license though to grow, and I have a license for
To grow
consumables
it.
here in the state of Florida. You know, so I've got all my licenses. You also have to have storage, you know, for all the products. So I keep all my stuff in storage. Whatever the law requires is what I do. On the side of using,
for people who may want to order it or have it or utilize it, the federal government made it nationwide a legal product for people to be able to have. What was it, 2018 and 2019?
I think it was 2018. I know it was covered maybe before that, but the farm bill was passed. The hemp farm bill was passed, I believe, in 2018.
So anybody watching, if you even think for a moment that this might be something that could help some of the conditions that you may have, whether it's pain or anxiety or any of the other things that Byron read down a list here earlier. I know we've done some work on my end with the VFW, and an awful lot of veterans have found that the PTSD, that this can help to reduce that for them, as opposed to having to have heavy drugs and antidepressants and all sorts of different things and calming drugs. And this can actually help to level a lot of that out for them. So there are many, many, many things. And everybody just, do your research. There's plenty of information online. Talk to your medical provider. But do your own research, because there's so many things that this can affect. Our bodies have been wired specifically for cannabinoids to be able to be part of it. We produce some ourselves in our bodies in low quantities, but we have receptors in our brain, and those receptors are there for a reason. And it works. And up until, what was it, the 1920s or 30s?
1926, I think it was, where the laws kind of changed and we demonized marijuana and CBD.
Right. Reefer madness and all that.
Right. Took cocaine out of Coca-Cola. It was awful.
Right. It was funny to learn. I think 1906 or something, cocaine was in Coca-Cola. Until then, the magic formula hidden in the safe and everything. But on the medical side, we always recommend that you speak to your doctor. CBD and other medicines don't work for everybody. My sister's a retired pharmacist, and she highly recommends that everybody speak to your doctor. You could be on other medications. Natural medications and the doctor's medications may conflict. So always, speak to your doctor first, and see if our product or anybody's product is going to be working for you on the CBD side.
That's even when you go to your doctor.
Have a medical marijuana doctor too, and because my doctor does, they have a medical marijuana doctor. They've actually got some of their older patients, even older than me, lowering their 6 or 8 oxycontins down to 2 by either ingestibles or smoking marijuana, and that's remarkable. Okay, so again, speak to the doctors, because they're now in the know a lot more than they were 5 years ago.
And just as a sidebar, anytime you're asked when you go, and we're asked every time we go just about now, when you go to your doctor and they say, what are, to list all the medications you have, include any of the over-the-counter or other items that you take every day, like vitamins,
list them all,
or any of the nutraceuticals that you might take, or any of the other things that you may be taking to supplement your health. All of those things affect, and your primary physician or whoever the physician is who's asking, when they see that list, they may see something that potentially has some interaction. You always want to avoid that. So this isn't any different than taking vitamin C 5,000 milligrams a day or whatever. You just need to make sure that you are talking with your primary or in the case of my wife, are endocrinologists. In my case, my neurologist. Probably in Mike's case would be the your cardio doctor, and making sure that there's no interaction, there's nothing there that's taking place, and do your own research. There's a ton of research online that you can go and find everything that Byron has been sharing here.
Yeah, there's YouTube videos out there.
Oh, gosh, yes.
It's just many people know if you want to change a tire, you can punch up change a tire on YouTube and you'll learn how to change your tire in a few minutes. So it's fantastic that we do have that kind of information available.
Yes.
And it's been my experience, Emerson, that the doctors that have taken this practice on along with their regular practice are really impressed with it, and really it was the first time I ever had a doctor spend 15 minutes talking to me in an exam room. I mean, I'm used to the doctor just kind of flying by, and saying, "Hey, good to see you, bye." But he sat there, explained all the differences between the different types of products, the ways of ingesting them, and he also talked about, he looked over every other medicine I took, which, folks, I'm 67. I take a couple medicines. What surprised me, and I'll admit I was a little ignorant on, is just because, folks, something says vitamin or something says natural on it, most poisons are natural, folks. It's when you start combining a bunch of different chemicals with no knowledge of it, you're taking a risk. So like Byron said, go to your doctor. The doctors have been so educational for me. Also, you'll find places in your city that sell only CBD and do a lot of educational work. They're kind of high-end storefronts. Sure. And you go in and talk to one of those people, they love their job. They will tell you way more about CBD than you ever thought you wanted to know. So it's a great thing. People get out there and get educated about it. Absolutely. But the other thing is finding reputable people to do business with. And Byron, you now take internet orders, don't you?
That is correct.
I see you put your private email up there for everybody. That's kind of nice. Usually they hide that one, folks.
No, then you can get in touch with me. We have products, and I like to speak to my customers. It's a new growing industry, and if anybody has questions, I'm always available.
Yeah, I think everybody that's working in the industry that I've ran across, and I know you don't make general statements like that, are before they get in real zealots for the product. They really care about helping as many people as possible. Well, they're helping themselves, of course. Is there any state line restrictions? I mean, if I live in Georgia, can I order some lollipops from your company in Florida or North Carolina?
Yes, you can. There are no restrictions that I'm aware of. I was in Oregon at one point and speaking to some stores about selling there, but they have so much hemp there that their government doesn't allow outside products out of state to be sold in their stores. That's the only one that I've found. And also, if you have gummy bears that are Delta 8 or CBD, gummy bears look like a kid's bear. So Louisiana will not let you sell little gummy bears. So there are some things that you learn in the business. It's obviously an adult product and it's clearly labeled, but that's something you would avoid in the future if you want to sell to that particular state.
Okay. And can I, at Hemp Family Farms website, can I actually place orders there?
Absolutely. It emails directly to me. We have Square if you want to pay by credit card. I actually prefer Zelle and Cash App and Venmo myself. And that's usually what most people pay. They actually want to pay up front and have it done as opposed to putting it on a credit card. So we rarely use credit card orders. Most of it's all apps.
Okay, great. Because that's folks. We didn't get into any of the horror stories of the things that they were testing that were selling in convenience stores and stuff. Don't just stop at a Stop and Rob and buy medicine, for God's sakes.
Right.
It's it's crazy to see people do that. And as I said, if you've visited a marijuana doctor, he'll recommend dispensaries
Sure.
and or other retail outlets, or send Byron an email and ask him, I live in Kansas City. Are there any, reputable dealerships here?
Sure.
Byron's in the industry. He knows that stuff. So, I just, I'm a total fan of it. Obviously, that became real clear when we were working on the book. But it's the most benefit for the least number of possible problems that it could cause you. I just got a new medicine for some nerve damage, and it was 4 pages of side effects.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's what I said. I said, they've got like 4 side effects that'll kill me, and there's 3 or 4 that are worse than them. Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? Because I mean,
I didn't take the medicine.
Sure.
I just, I had discomfort, but not that much discomfort.
Right. Oh,
and this is a great thing to experiment with, folks, after you talk with your doctor. And, you don't even, if you're in a position where physically you can't go out to see a doctor anymore, the breakthroughs in telemed systems, especially for marijuana prescriptions and that, it's really been working well. So you can get on, like we're here on Zoom,
Sure.
You can call the doctor's office. They'll send you a link. They get on there with you, and they do all the questions they would have done if you were sitting in their office.
Right.
So even people that are shut-ins can get good advice and can get product delivered right to their door. Let's talk just a little bit more, Byron, about how many products was it you said that they're making out of hemp now?
52,000 products is an estimate that they're making out of hemp. And I mean, seriously, there are some serious products we need to know about here. Henry Ford actually built a car out of hemp, like a hemp fiber. Also developed, probably some other people developed a gasoline, a hemp fuel, which I heard about 6 months ago. I was just going through the channels on TV, and somehow, somewhere, one of the news channels said, "Oh, if we were using hemp right now," it might have been a documentary, it would only be $1.28 a gallon for hemp ethanol. Well, that would be nice. I mean, we're up to $5 in some cases for high test. So there's so many products. Obviously, fiber. My family's been considering growing for fiber. They're supposed to build a fiber processing plant an hour from our farm. So we may be growing fiber for, a couple of different companies. If the plant is there, we already have seeds, ready to grow. Sure.
A lot of people, they hear fiber all the time. We've mentioned it a bunch of times. They read about it all the time. But fibers that are malleable, I think that's the word, that you can work with, are the building blocks of a lot of things in our lives. I mean, that poster sitting behind Byron, that's probably 90% fiber in that. Same with the picture frame for the award, because
that's right.
Yeah, it's not real wood. I hate to tell you that.
But, it looks good.
Yeah, it does. And I was so excited, folks. I actually had pictures of me giving it to Byron, because we usually publish books all over the world. And Byron and I happen to live about 15 minutes from each other. So I was able to physically go over to his house, give him a cardboard box, watch him unwrap the whole thing. It was real exciting for Byron, but I think it was more exciting for me.
Well, hold it up again, Byron.
It was definitely exciting for me. So
hold it up again, because that book is something that is available, and it is a international bestseller on this topic.
No, that's good. And folks, I want to mention, Byron wants to get this message out. If you don't want to go on Amazon and spend, is it $24.95 for a print copy, and it's probably a buck or two for a digital one. If you'll write Byron at his personal email there, he will send you a digital download of his printed book. at no cost. So
yeah, I'd love for people to read it. It's about saving the planet. There's so many things that we can do. And recycling, I pick up trash on the beach. I encourage people to do that. I mean, please read the book if it can help us all collectively, get rid of pollution and save the planet. That would be fantastic. So
yeah, just getting those plastic straws out of the ocean is going to help a lot of our bird friends. But the building the houses out of the hemp is what I really like, and it's such a carbon neutral plant.
yes,
Well, I mean, there's a reason they call it a weed, because it'll grow like weeds in the
yes,
right
yes,
environments.
that's true. That's true.
But
I'm going to put
because
in a little shameless promotion here for you. This is one of the things that I'm very involved with that our viewers know. I'm on the board of directors of the United States Green Chamber of Commerce. So
Oh,
everything you're talking about is important because it's sustainable,
yes,
it'll last, and it's something that helps the environment and doesn't hurt the environment.
exactly. It lowers our carbon footprint.
Yes.
That's real important. Grandchildren will know better than we will.
well, I'm cleaning the heavy metals out of the soil, folks.
Yes.
It's
I
huge.
mean, we could have a whole show just on the bad parts of what heavy metals are doing to us, and it's a cumulative thing.
Right.
Folks, I mean, you might say, well, gee, that fish doesn't have much mercury in it.
It has
But
plastic, though.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's plastic.
if you eat fish 3 times a day, especially certain of the bigger fish that are more likely to get the concentrate in them, it will affect you eventually.
Yeah, they say that the average American absorbs about the same amount of plastic as in a credit card every single year now.
Oh my God, I never heard that.
It's huge. It's a huge amount.
Oh
In
boy.
microplastics, in our bloodstream,
Right. Yes.
in our flesh, in what we
I
eat.
just put one of my plastic container I take to the gym. I put it in the freezer just for a little while and it froze. So I'm probably going to buy a new one because I'm afraid, now that there's even more plastic in there now, so.
Yeah, you're a successful businessman. Get yourself a stainless steel igloo or Yeti. Not Yeti. That's the
I have a Yeti. That's right. I forgot about the Yeti.
I love my Yeti coffee cup. It keeps the coffee warm for a full hour.
All day long.
Yeah, it's just. At first, I thought it was crazy to pay $30 for one cup.
They are amazing.
Yeah, now I think it was a deal. It was a deal.
Sure. And it does it for cold. It does it for cold liquid too.
Oh, yeah. How does it know the difference? It's amazing. Byron, are there any things that we've missed that you'd like to make sure we get in? We're down to about 4 minutes now.
Yeah. Well, I would love to reach out and encourage farmers to grow hemp. I know a lot of farmers from North Carolina that I've met, and they have, crops that they've been growing for years, and I'm sure they're very successful. But I hope that we see the day that more farmers, start to grow hemp. It's certainly going to help us. The hemp fiber grows a lot taller, and it's a field. It'll help us. We won't have to cut down trees anymore for paper. And that really helps save the planet because the trees, are good, to help us breathe. I mean, we need forests, we need rainforests. And we've, unfortunately, we've destroyed a lot of our planet. And if we turn it around now, we probably have a good chance working collectively to make those changes. And if we're not working collectively, it's going to be very difficult.
You mentioned the farmers, and it really doesn't take a significant amount of land for them to make a difference.
That's correct.
I mean, that was my biggest surprise was the production per acre is so high with these
very high
lands,
and compared to the trees, which take how many years to grow? You're growing hemp in 14 weeks.
and the hemp is putting nutrients back in the soil,
back into the soil.
So there's because there's some countries like Cuba, for example, has literally burnt their soil up. They used to have the best soil in the world for growing tobacco, and they're like number 10 in the world now because they've abused every bit of soil that they grow in.
Yeah, the area called Vuelta Abajo was the center and the key. I was like the Champagne region of the world for our growing cigars years ago, and now it's just been totally depleted and used artificial artificial fertilizers and everything else to try to keep it growing.
I want to mention one more time, folks, that Byron said if you're a farmer, and you don't have to be in North Carolina, Byron either knows what's going on in your state or he knows the person that knows what's going on in your state. So reach out by email to him. You'll be surprised. He'll return your email within 24 hours. Wow.
That's his personal email.
Yeah. It goes right to his cell phone, folks. So.
Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. People have questions. If I can help them with any answers, I'm more than happy to do that. It's a learning process. We all need to be, educated. So if there's any way I can help, that would be fantastic.
Okay,
well, Mike. I think we've come to the end of this show. We have to do another one.
Yeah, as you get more to tell us, you got to get back on.
Absolutely. During the process of building the house, we're going to document everything. I hope to have a camera set up to do time lapse with my nephew and everything. So
that'll be wonderful.
It'll be documented, and we're going to learn along with everyone else.
Perfect.
Well, Byron, thank you so much for being on. We really appreciate you sharing what we look for, which is accurate, cutting-edge information.
No, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the business and be on and speak with you guys. It's an excellent opportunity.
All right. We're out of here, folks.
Okay. Thank you so much.